have Ron. If you have not had the opportunity to work with or hear Ron Rhoades talk about his teaching and the things that are happening in the classroom, then I think you're in for a treat. He is such a thoughtful and wonderful pedagogue. And so I just am pleased that he would do this for us. So Ron, we will pass it on to you.
Great. Thank you, Micah. As you can see, there's materials that you can download at a blog page that I just created. And let's get on. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. So the title of this is Flipping the Classroom with Perusall and Holding Students Accountable. And basically, it was done in a freshman class. And just to let everybody know, of course, the standard disclaimer, these are all my views and suggestions and are not necessarily those of CITL or any cult or mob or criminal gang I've ever been kicked out of. So take that as you will. A lot of handouts on that site. If you press read more, and then it will link to a Google Drive where all the documents are. One of those documents is a detailed outline of this presentation. So kind of 20 pages or something like that, but also some sample chapters, a chapter on learning how to learn, which I'll cover the concepts in that to some degree here, and also some links to some documents that I use in my classes. So a lot to cover today. It'd be great to have questions, but not sure how much time we've got. I will try to endeavor to go through this so we can leave some time for questions at the end. All right, so first off, let's meet Joanne. We know that students today coming into college are quite different from the students that we had, 20, 30, 40 years ago. A lot of loneliness, anxiety, depression, and poor academic skills, especially post-COVID, rise of absenteeism post-COVID, certainly phone addictions, and the anxiety that can come from social media and the like. Of course, then always good at texting, fearful of judgments of others, don't know how to talk on the phone, don't know how to start up a conversation with others. And in yellow, I highlighted some things that really came this year more so than any others. One was, just over use of TikTok, which to me is not something I've done, but I've become more cognizant of it. Big thing is inability to complete the longer reading assignments. I used to give 30, 40 page reading assignments sometimes, and I really never had a problem with that. But now I find anytime I give more than 15 pages, students are struggling with that. And there's been articles online about that in the various educational journals. Students are spending things, which on expensive things. And one of the things I came across this semester was online gambling. Apparently, it's a big thing in colleges. I read an article, 25% of college males participate in online gambling. And I asked my students about it, and they said 75% of college males at WKU were doing that, which is alarming to me because you get hooked on it. You can lose a lot of money that way, obviously. So this course, one of several courses that I teach in financial planning and investments, the objectives of this is a freshman level course. We want to empower the student to make good financial decisions throughout their life. Along the way, reduce their stress, both here at WKU and in the future. And the ultimate goal is to achieve financial freedom, not having to work anymore. Want people to be able to achieve that earlier in life, or have a bigger retirement than they perhaps would have envisioned, and enjoy life along the way. There's some other things that we try to do, obviously develop teamwork skills and make connections, both with WKU and with others in the classroom, enhance their verbal communication skills, which often are fairly non-existent, and increase their self-confidence. That's pretty much what you want to do with almost any freshman. Topics in this course, I really try to address the four major expenditures. What are you going to spend a lot of money or time on? The really big stuff, and that's career choice. So we covered that very early on in the course, and purchasing a home, purchasing multiple vehicles during the course of their lifetime. And of course, the worst financial decision that anybody can have is to have children. We know that as well. But there's some foundational financial knowledge that they all need. And so there's other topics, of course, in the course. Compound interest, investing, how to save taxes, how to use employee benefits properly, credit scores, debt management, if you want to call it that, and avoiding spending just because you're a consumer, trying to keep up with others. Yeah. So I have some personal objectives. I want to increase student retention here at WKU. I want to set them up for academic success in their future semesters by getting them engaged with a learning process. I want to emphasize to them that when they leave WKU, they're going to be learning continuously because things are rapidly evolving. From a standpoint of their emotional intelligence, I want them to overcome their personal fears, including that fear that's so common nowadays, the fear of being judged by others, and do that with a lot of techniques. And basically, I also want them to focus on themselves and teach them about the concept of emotional intelligence. It's a very broad area, and I can't cover all of it, of course, in a finance course, but we do some things to hopefully set the stage for them to keep exploring what are they weak on in terms of emotional intelligence and how can they improve. So when I first started teaching about 15 years ago, I was focused for several years on how to become a better teacher. And then I learned that facilitating learning was a much better focus in terms of improving my skill sets as a teacher. And I think CITL, the L for learning, says a lot to that as well. So basically, this presentation is about a whole bunch of different concepts and how I kind of weave them together to both energize students, but also to hold them accountable. We're going to spend a little bit of time on class preparation assignments using the Perusall learning platform, and then some concepts, generation, space interval learning, retrieval practice, interleaving. Those are a lot of course, academic research about those. Micropause is something relatively new, really important, and I don't think gives enough attention in most of our courses is the need to have sufficient sleep and consistent sleep. And then using the Perusall to basically encourage social learning, collaborative learning outside the classroom, and also bringing that inside the classroom. So basically, my approach is to flip the classroom. It's something I've done more of in the last couple of years to try to make the course more engaging. It's basically students have to do some readings and watch some videos using the Perusall learning platform before class. And then basically they come into class and we review that and we apply it. Now I set the stage for this. So there's a really great video, really is the start at me doing class preparation assignments a different way than I do them now. But it probably came out 10 years ago, and I provided a link to this, and the slides are posted on that website as well. It basically set the stage so where students are talking about why class preparation assignments were so powerful, any math class of all things. And I also find that flipping the classroom, not only does it enable you to do a lot more class activities because you have a lot more time, but there's more time for guest speakers. And of course, you try to utilize some student testimonials to reinforce the benefits of a flipped classroom. And another thing I do is in my syllabus, I caution students that this is a flipped classroom. If you want a traditional classroom where you come and receive a lecture, you probably want to take it with another professor. But because this is going to force you to do learning outside of class, on your own or in groups, and that is how you learn in the real world when you're given a project. So I try to set the stage for that so I don't have students coming in with the wrong expectations. The Perusall Learning Platform is one of many different learning platforms out there. I use this. One of the reasons I use it is because it's basically free. And it fosters that collaborative reading. It also, by automatically grading, how much time they spend on something, whether they read to the end, whether they post comments, how good the comments are, whether they upvote other students. There's quiz questions that can be assigned. Did they answer those correctly? And you can alter all these scores, the way each score is weighted, depending on what you're trying to do. And basically, it holds students accountable for the reading. And it allows Perusall. You can use traditional textbooks with it. You buy them through students would buy them through the Perusall platform in some way. Or you can use instructor created materials or some combination of that. I create my own textbooks, and we'll see why in a few minutes. But I'll also upload articles and things like that, and videos. I might do my own videos. I might link to videos I find on YouTube. It is free, though. There is a suggested $5 or $10 fee for each student. And I have not embraced that yet. Maybe it will not forever be a free platform, but it is a grant-funded platform. So here's an overview of Perusall. This is the screen that you would get if you go to the Perusall website. And it was fostered by research done by a Harvard professor and another one. Again, you can link to your textbook, assign sections of the textbook to read and annotate, videos, quiz questions, and again, adjustable metrics. The first step you do in Perusall is to actually build a library. You don't have to do this all at once. You can like put one lesson up and then a week later do another lesson, or you can put an entire book up there, or put all of your materials up even before the class starts. So here, for example, I have an introduction to Perusall. That is a commercially produced video. I have a video on how to access and use Perusall. Here is the first 7 chapters of a book on investing that I wrote. This is for a slightly different course called Applied Investing. Here's a video I recorded on one of the chapters, Learning to Learn. And you can add a lot more to that. So basically you can upload from the Perusall catalog. There's over 1 million titles in that catalog. So chances are your textbook will be there. Documents, web pages, and quizzes. You can make quizzes as well. So one of the things I do is I try to come up with quiz questions. It's part of elaborative interrogation. Some of the research shows, if you just ask questions, they don't have to be extremely difficult questions, but just asking questions and getting people to recall things out of their memory really helps in their learning process. And you can intersperse those quiz questions along the assignment, or you can do them at the end, however you want to set it up. I then take what's in the library and I'll choose out of the library what my assignment will be. So this one, for example, is CPA or class preparation assignment number 1. So I have basically 6 library items assigned. CPA 1, video needs versus wants, you need a budget for rules, balance sheet example, another video on what is human capital, and another video on opportunity cost. So, and as you do this, you can, like the CPA 1, you can break that up. You can say, well, watch these 2 pages or this section if it's set up that way. And I always try to illustrate, tell the clients up front, how much is it going to take? So what are they doing? They're doing 5 short videos plus 14 pages of readings. There's no quiz in this section. That should take them about 1.5 hours to complete. And then I say, here are the ways to basically get your maximum score. Actively read all the pages, and watch the videos, undertake annotations, which I'll discuss, upvote other students' high quality annotations. And this is the process of upvoting. So the students are, one of the requirements is, and I assign like 40% of their grade of this, is to basically post, depending on how the content is, two comments or 3 or 4, in which they make a comment about, hey, this is something that happened in my life, or I would like to apply this to my situation this way, or providing some type of insightful comment on that. Perusall, the way it scores, if somebody does 3 or 4 sentences, it's likely to get the maximum score. Below that is you can adjust the scoring to say where you get half the score or 2/3 of the score for a slightly less good comment. You can also go in after the fact, by the way, and look at all the comments. I actually go in and as students put their comments in, I will go in during the evening, the night before class, and upvote myself. Instructors upvote comments that are extremely good. So they highlight that, they post a comment, and then other students can upvote those comments, which you see that green thing to there. And that makes it collaborative. They can also ask questions and respond to questions. And uh, they can earn points multiple different ways. The quiz questions, the comments, the upvoting, reading all the way to the end, spending so much time on reading. And I typically will have up to 13 points that they can earn, but the maximum points they can earn is 10. There's 1,000 points in the course, so they can earn up to 10 points or 1% of their grade for this out-of-class assignment. The last thing you do is link that assignment back to Blackboard. Again, I copy the what's required back there, and that's a pretty easy. That just takes 30 seconds to do or less, and the like. So again, each of my class preparation assignments is 1% of the final grade, and there might be 35 of these class preparation assignments in a semester. It's automatic grading, which is nice. I can go in and adjust any grade. I can provide extensions to a grade. I can exempt a grade. So there's a lot of things you can do from an adjustment standpoint. Uh, and the grades automatically transfer back to Blackboard, which is nice. I would say 97% of the time, maybe 1% of the time, 2% of the time, I have to go in and for some reason that particular student's score is not linking back this time. Sometimes it's like happens 6 times per student, sometimes just one during the semester. But you do have to sometimes double check and just move a few scores over to Blackboard that for some reason didn't link up with Blackboard. So here are some student comments. I took a survey last semester, and a majority of the students reported that they increased the time they devote to reading the course materials relative to other classes that they have taken. And some of the real positive comments were a very, very effective, great way to stay engaged. It allows me to enter the class knowledgeable about the topic when talking about, should be implemented in every course. And the site evaluation comments are very similar to this. I do have on almost every site evaluation one student who always seems to say, I felt I was teaching myself. Yeah, well, guess what? You basically were, although you were doing it in a collaborative way. And again, and at least in the world of business, that's the way it's done. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad way. I have always been disappointed with the layout of the traditional textbook. So I try to address that in the way that I present the material and apply what I call modern learning theory to it. I want students to not just learn the material so they can pass an exam, but learn it efficiently, which means less time, and also effectively, which means they're going to form long-term memories. And I tell the students this. Uh, and so each chapter that I do in my own text, and there's a sample chapter in the materials, I start off with a review of the prior chapter. That's just basic spaced interval learning. I do curiosity prompts that maybe it's a little story, something else that fosters curiosity about the topic that they're studying. And maybe there could be multiple curiosity prompts in some chapters. I provide the list of terms and concepts at the front of the chapter, right after the curiosity prompts. That helps because I in that I say, please go through this list and verbalize the concepts that you know. And it also triggers them if they can't verbalize a concept, they may have no exposure to it or not enough. Then it triggers that when they do read something that they know that it's important. Of course, learning objectives are still important. And I also try to answer why. Why are we studying this? It's not just being curious about it, but why is this relevant to your life? which is fairly easy to do in a personal finance or an investments course. Obviously, more relevance to it. When people are doing the class preparation assignments, I have begun really encouraging elaborative interrogation, not just by quiz questions or uh, the annotations or comments that they make, but also through note taking. And I have in the past taught the Cornell notes method. I've had some students adopt it. This past winter break, I came up with a new method that combines the Cornell notes method with the Feynman technique into a one-page note-taking form. And I posted that. I don't have any feedback on that. I don't know if students are using it. I hope they are. But we'll see how it goes. Um, and of course, collaborative learning, you go through all that. Retrieval practice during the CPAs, again, not only through elaborative interrogation, but quizzes, practice questions at the end, glossary. And I also do a link to Quizlet. So I'll do that QR code link, and I will have already done the Quizlet for them. And they can go there and use that Quizlet. And I strongly encourage them to download the Quizlet app. And sometimes there's a lot of terminology in personal finance and investments. I'd say that probably 150 to 250 terms and concepts in each of the two courses where I use Quizlets in them. Of course, space interval learning. It's not just the textbook that we're thinking about. It's also how do you structure the class? And I think space interval learning is one of the most effective ways of fostering long-term learning. It varies, I think, depending on the right setup probably varies a lot depending on what type of course you're teaching, the content of the course. But there's a class preparation assignment that's due the day before. Typically, we go over it, sometimes before that. Then we review the material the next day in class. And then day 3, they'll do another class preparation assignment. Again, there's that review of the prior one right in the readings. On day 4, we might do an in-class review of some concepts or a Quizlet that applies that. And then there might be quizzes later. Usually right after a Quizlet, I'll do a quiz right in class. So I'll give them 10 minutes to go do a Quizlet that has 15 terms, and then I'll do a 5-question quiz uh, with the goal of basically fostering the spaced interval learning and retrieval practice. And of course, there'll be a review of the major concepts at different points in the course. And before each exam, I do a team Jeopardy. I have each team answer every question and they have to self-score. And then, of course, there's a lot of exam review questions, links to Quizlets, including a combined Quizlet that combines all the questions for that exam. And students can prepare their own 5x8 cards. So I actually hand out these cards. I buy them in bulk on Amazon, something like this. They can, as long as they handwrite on one side only, they're okay. But it has to be handwritten in their own hand. And some students really do well on that, and I can't believe how small they write. I tell them you can't bring a magnifying glass. Other students you look at what they've written down, it's just a few things. But that if they use a 5x8 card for preparing, they're really fostering, I think, their own learning. Of course, midterm and interim exams and a comprehensive final exam, at least in these courses where that is appropriate. Yeah. Retrieval practice a lot. If I do not have an exercise during the class that is graded, I try to assign an activity. It might be filling out a spreadsheet. It might be answering questions. It might be taking notes from a guest speaker. If I don't have any type of assignment there, I'm asking them to write down things that they learned that day. And I'll grade that, especially at the beginning of a semester, to identify people that maybe just put 3 or 4 things down. I want them to put like 8 to 15. It depends on how much material you cover in that class. But basically a reflective statement, what did I learn? And at the beginning of the next class, I form teams of 3 to 4 students, review the questions that are posed in the agenda, which is on Blackboard, And then I use a random number generator to call one or more teams up to the front of the class and present their answers. Now, I could also use this technique to review content from the CPA they just read, or from past CPAs, or all three of that. So I might occupy 10 minutes of the class or 5 minutes of the class doing this, or I might occupy 20 or 30 minutes of a class session, depending on what I'm trying to achieve there. And a comment is, I think choosing random teams to tell the class what they learn is helpful because it gets out of their comfort zone. A team has to come to the front of the class, and each member of that team has to give one answer to one question. So it typically works if they all give a good answer. I give them all a little bear. I hand out bears. If you've seen those around campus, you know where they come from. Also, there's a if, if it's whether it's a reflective statement or some type of other exercise, there's a graded assignment in each class. So I don't necessarily, because I don't want somebody submitting work when they weren't in class. I want to double check that. But basically, submitting the assignment during a class session takes the place of a set of attendance individually submit their assignments. Yeah. We have Quizlet Pro, it's $36 a year. You can put pictures up there, and there's more functionality to it at this point. And it really makes forming Quizlets a lot easier when you use Quizlet Pro, because it's got some features you can put in a term, and maybe a definition actually pops up that somebody else had already put in there. And a lot of times I'll put in, like if there's a term or concept, I might put in different definitions. So there'll be a repetition of certain terms and concepts with different definitions, worded a little bit differently as well. So in these courses, I give 3 exams. By the time you do the class preparation assignments, 1% each, and the in-class assignments, 1% each, you only have about 350 to 400 points left in the course, or 35 to 40%. But so the exams become like 11% to 15% of the course. The final exam is more like 15%, maybe a little higher, depending on how much you've gone through. So multiple choice, a lot of hypotheticals, but I always ask, at least in the first 2 exams, an essay question. And I will give them a list of the essay questions that are likely to be on the exam. And that list may be anywhere from 6 questions to 16 by the end of the course. And because if you have to explain something, you have to study differently for it. Multiple choice. There's too many students who are really good at deductive reasoning, even with hypotheticals, and can sometimes score pretty well. So I use essay questions. In the last exam, I do not use an essay question. It's usually, during exam week, and it's just not enough time to grade all the essays. The essays could be, I'm typically looking, and I tell them, I'll give them like subparts that they have to answer. I want to address these specific subtopics. And I'm usually getting the equivalent of about a page as far as what they type. Yeah. So I do teach interleaving versus mass practice. So when they're studying, to try to break up their studying into 30 minutes chunks, maybe study one topic in a math class, then one topic in my class, one topic in an English class, something like that, and then go back and the like. Some students have found that very useful. I would say a minority of students have implemented interleaving. Others, students I think are just really good at focusing and don't really need interleaving, or of course they just not trying it at all. Something that I've done very recently is micropauses while they're reading. I think the research on this has gotten to the point where it's more accepted. If you just take a 10-second break after you read a section, maybe it's a page and a half, maybe 2 pages, not too long, and you just focus on your breathing and relax, Not get on your phone, not take in more information, but actually just relax. Um, your brain replays 20 times or so what you just learned, which really helps encode that information into your memory. Um, I think it also has some other, from what I've read, some other things, refreshes you, enhances your concentration going forward and the like. Uh, so that's been pretty interesting for me, and I found a lot of students have adopted that, primarily because in my textbook, I will say, take a micropause now, 10 seconds, focus on your breathing. Uh, so I will have many of those in a chapter, those micropauses. Students will come back to say, I really like this technique, but I'm over here reading and I forgot to do micropauses. So uh, I do teach the importance of sleep. I find that if you can convince students that sleep is extremely important and give them examples of that, show them that GPAs increase for those who have more sleep. There's some nice graphics online about that. Uh, then you can really make an impact. I asked freshmen in a living learning community at the end of their first semester, what was your biggest challenge? And they said it was getting, of course, getting enough sleep. Yeah. And, uh, but I do get good comments from some students, more than some, that basically say, yeah, guess what? I'm doing a lot better now because I'm focusing more on sleep. We have to realize, of course, most college students of this college age, their circadian rhythms are different. Their sleep times are shifted later. The average time that students go to sleep as a college student is around 12:45, something like that. Later on weekends, and that can lead to social jet lag, which I explore in the sample in the chapter I have about this. Uh, and but students are not willing to, by the way, to give up their late night parties on Thursdays and Saturdays and Fridays and avoid social jet lag. At least most of them are. Uh, Overall, I basically devote one chapter of reading to this learning how to learn, at least in this class and another one. And I get some good comments about it. Basically, I do get some comments. Hey, I had another freshman course. Some of this was covered in that course, which is fantastic. Uh, and but I get a lot that I am using some of these techniques, and I think it helped me out. The way I set up Blackboard is like a lot of things I think CITO has taught over the time. I explained that Blackboard is the scaffold. It's the structure of the course. Perusall is your textbook. You go to Blackboard and you press on the topic, and it will take you to Perusall. Uh, and then in Blackboard, I set up folders. And for freshmen, I have a list of graded assignments in the upcoming week, and that's usually 5 or 6 assignments. Uh, I tell them when the CPAs are due. I will actually, of course, have an entry for every class preparation assignment with the link to Perusall there. I'll have a link to the each class session. And if there's an assignment, which always is, that's basically set up as an assignment, uh, quizzes as well. I might include some optional readings or videos for those who really want to delve into a topic. And for freshmen, especially at the beginning of the semester, I'll remind them to see week 2. Guess what? You got an assignment due Sunday night. So remind them that. I have other folders, the syllabus. I do seating charts. I'll touch on that in a minute. A lot of resources I found that freshmen need on how to use Blackboard, how to use Microsoft Office, how to access it, how to get it on your computer, and how to use OneDrive. Uh, and then professional and personal development resources, a whole big folder of that. Uh, a lot of that's geared to financial planners, but some of it's just general for college students. And then, of course, for every exam, I have a folder typically that has all the exam review materials, links to the Quizlets and the like. I'll also post at the beginning of the class the schedule for the final exam. I'll just take the whole schedule and post it there in Blackboard so that students can refer to it and know when their exam times will be. Uh, I set forth the class agenda. I like to play music before class. I like to play rock music, but I've gotten requests to do a lot more country. So I do that. I've been doing this for, gosh, 14 years. I like heavy bass music, kind of wakes them up. And more recently, I've done a detailed agenda and I try to answer the question, why? Why are we doing this activity in class? And like, so here's an example of that. I said, great music before class. There's a couple of country singers, YouTube videos, of course. Uh, Teams meet, what we learned from the last class session, topics that a team might discuss. And then uh, a little bit of a lecture or discussion from me on the secret to saving and having a great financial life. And then each student, I'll actually have them do the Quizlets during the class because they won't do them outside of class. Only the great students will do them outside of class. Having them do it inside of class and then often having a quiz right after that is a good idea. And then, in this class, I had them get together with team, come up with ideas, and then we share ideas within the class. In the very first class, I emphasized that this class is a safe zone. And I put this up on the board a little bit differently, of course, on the text, but the goal was of creating this supportive environment that people are free to make mistakes. And they hopefully will realize that we are not here to judge each other. Judging really tells more about us than it tells about them. We are there to support each other. And one of the ways I do that, I don't know if I want to share this, but I will. I have everybody stand up on one leg for 10 seconds and they have to blurt out the sound of a farm animal, like a horse or a pig or a goat or something like that. And they have to look at each other while they're doing that. I do that right at the beginning of the first class. And I have them all sit down. Yeah. And then I'll say, guess what? We're not here to judge each other. This is a safe zone. And I'll get into that. And they realize, hey, you know what? Everybody else is in the same situation I'm at. Of course, I'll review the syllabus a little bit. I'll set expectations. I'll remind them there are 60 to 70 different assessments in the class. I don't really review the syllabus in my senior classes. I expect them to have reviewed that on their own, but for freshman classes, obviously, I tell them right up front, I have very high expectations for them. And of course, I'll explain the flipped classroom approach and show a little bit of that video as well. Um, I also have teams review 16 class participation metrics. These have been developed over time. I have students review them, suggest changes to them. I'm at the point where very few changes are done. But like, for example, one class participation metric might be volunteer to ask or answer a question during the course of this semester. Everybody in the class do that. Keep up with your assignments. Get uh, good sleep before class. Come to every class. Um, so uh, there's 16 metrics. Some of them really relate to like being present during the class, uh, not using your cell phone during class unless it's used for something in involving a class activity. Uh, so those are metrics. And then in the middle of the semester, I go back and say, here are the 16 metrics. Please explain in a discussion board post how well you did in each one. And then comment upon two other students with a supportive comment or constructive comment. I use Team Jeopardy for exam reviews. That's gamification, of course. Um, I often worry about that. I usually can go through like 50 concepts over the course of 55 minutes using Team Jeopardy. It's harder than multiple choice questions because you're giving them a definition and they have to come up with the answer without I don't put like 4 different answers up. They have to come up with the answer. But the students really like it, the fun aspect of it. I continue to use it. I'm a little worried, I'm worried about Kahoot. Uh, is it really fostering learning? But it is fostering retrieval practice. And the students love it. So I do think there's some benefit to it. Um, how much in terms of actual learning do they get from it? I think one of the things it does is it allows them to understand they are not ready for that exam and they got some more studying to do because they don't, even working in teams and team jeopardy, a lot of them will miss several answers that way. I do try to form teams at the beginning of class. So I try to form balanced teams. So I will consider, first off, what is your academic major if they have one? I find that students who have the same academic major tend to have more in common. They tend to collaborate more together. Do they want to sit? Do you need to sit in the front row? Is it possible for you to sit in the first two rows, or do you prefer to sit in the middle or at the back, where the bear will prowl, and you're trying to hide? And I'll actually put that in there. I'll ask them, not for freshmen, but for others, what's your cumulative GPA? And I will always ask them about their level of presentation anxiety. None all the way to severe, strong, and then some other middle ones categories, and explain what presentation anxiety is, with the goal that you're not putting, in a team of 4 or 3 people with high presentation anxiety on the same team. When a team comes up, I tell them, hey, if somebody stumbles, another team member can step up and help them out. And if the team stumbles, everybody in the class can help them out. So you try to make a less stressful environment for them to learn. I do this in Excel, and then I can download. It's done in a survey format that I can then download to Excel, which helps me sort things, which helps me spend a little bit less time forming seating charts. But I will take 4 to 6 hours, maybe even more, forming seating charts, usually by the first week of class around Thursday when I have a free day. I'm not calling it a free day. So we use these terms to foster peer-to-peer learning, of course. And there's a lot of activities you can do that require teamwork. Of course, think, pair, share strategies as well. And I get a lot of good comments about the fact that they enjoyed working in a group. Often I wouldn't say often, rarely I will find a team that is not working well together. If I did a good job forming teams, I never have to switch them. But sometimes in a class, I can tell a team is not working together well and the like. And in that case, I will, whether it's after 5 weeks or after 7 or 8 weeks, I will switch the teams around. Not all of the teams, but I might switch 2 or 3 team members around. Yeah. Oh, one of the things I do usually at the end of the first week is you might call it an icebreaker, but I call it the 4 trials of WKU. The purpose is to get them out of their comfort zone and understand that getting out of their comfort zone is something they need to do in college. It's a great way to learn. The very first thing to do is I've assigned teams. They got to go learn about their teammates. They got to ask big talk questions. So there's a video out there, Big Talk by Kalina, 5 minutes that I play right before that. Things like, what's your greatest fear at WKU right now? Something like that. And then we walk down to Downing Student Union. They have to smile and greet everybody that they pass by. Usually I send small teams down, one after the other. We get on the stairs of Downing Student Union and they have to shout out a statement, just a one sentence. And I give them 3 pages of sample statements, everything from I am Spartacus to I am a successful student, and just all kinds of statements, some of them funny, some not. And then after that, I dismiss them. But before I dismiss them, they have to go. At that point, they need to go somewhere on campus, find somebody that they've never met, and interview them. And I give them the sample interview questions. Then, of course, they do a discussion board post about each of the 4 activities. Did they enjoy it? Did they do it? Do they recommend that activity to another person? Do they recommend the 4 trials for others? And that has helped, I think, in terms of fostering this mantra of continuous self-improvement while they're at WKU. I also assign 3 expand your comfort zone assignments. Most students like this very much. On occasion, the student will say, this was inappropriate in a finance class. About 1 out of 100, I think, will say that. But most of them like it. And these assignments are things like speak up in class when you normally would not speak up. One of them might be and participate in karaoke. Say yes to an activity when you would otherwise decline the invitation. Um, and there's a list of those, and then I have a list other ones. The second expander comfort zone assignment that are more like expressing gratitude. Keep a gratitude journal, do 3 random acts of kindness, tell a family member or a friend, not your significant other, express thankfulness for their support of you in some way. Very powerful one. And of course, they write about it and comment on other people's posts. Commenting on the other's posts is very important because they got to read other posts and they'll say, hey, I might want to do that next. Because the third activity is they can do any one from the first 2 activities, and they can always make up their own. I encourage them to select an activity that challenges them in some way, that pushes them in some way. Just to go on a little bit different topic, I did do a class size experiment. I took this personal finance class from 35 to 40 students the prior fall, and I had 2 sections of 75 to 80 students. My hypothesis being that I could achieve similar learning outcomes as long as I adjusted the way I teach the class to some degree, but also if I had a teaching assistant. So I did hire a teaching assistant who turned out to be a junior who was extremely just fantastic. And I don't think that all classes by any means are conducive to that. For example, if you got a class where you got to really, stand over a student and help them with the math, that's probably not one, unless you have a lot of teaching assistants or something like that. But the goal I had was basically maintain a high level of student engagement and still try to achieve the learning objectives at the same level of effectiveness. Well, the outcomes were, yeah, there was high student engagement and participation. From a standpoint of grades, the student performance actually increased. However, I don't think there's a causal relation for several reasons. I made a lot of small changes from one semester to the other, so you really can't compare them. The teaching assistant mentored many of the students. Actually, the students would go up and really seek her out by the 3rd or 4th week, and more importantly, having the teaching assistant and myself reaching out to students because we do an assignment, every day. At the end of the first week, you can already identify students who aren't doing well, who are not keeping up with the adaptive, and a lot of these are first semester freshman students. Some negatives of teaching large classes: it certainly takes higher energy, both before class and during the class sessions. I didn't feel I got to know each and every student in the class, something I like to do. The involvement of the teaching assistant helped, but I worry that some students didn't get really a personalized attention. And with a larger number of teams, there was less incentive to be prepared if a team was called upon. So instead of having maybe 8 teams in a class or 9 or 10, you end up with 14, 15, or 16. And they think, oh, our chance of a team being called upon is a lot less. We don't really have to work on getting ready to be called upon. I'm going to change that next. In fact, I already have changed it by basically calling upon multiple teams each day, getting back up to a high probability of being called upon on a random basis. So my conclusion of that, yeah, I think that the combination of Perusall, flipping the classroom, a lot more interactive class activities, making the classroom fun, combined with this accountability. And I got to say, 1% for class preparation assignment, 1% for coming to class and doing the exercises, graded lightly in each case. And basically, I'm trying to test effort as opposed to perfection. But I'd have to say it's both the carrot and stick approach. If you only do 0.5%, a lot of students will not do the assignment or won't come to class. So I found that I needed to increase the points and really, really get them to class all the day. I think it helped a lot. I also think that this year we kind of getting away from some of the post-COVID absenteeism a little bit. I just feel that the students are more engaged and more likely to come to class on their own without the incentives. And I've heard from other faculty members that things seem to be getting better now. Yeah. I do think that this approach for some classes can be implemented in a large classroom as well. So I use this technique both in personal finance, also a junior level class, applied investments. It's basically a great elective for business students, but also for other students. So I actually have some professors who audit that course to learn how to manage your portfolios better. Uh, Things I'd like to explore, obviously, anytime you do something, you want to get better at how you integrate everything together and design the course. You can always get better from one. I've thought about, should I use micro pauses during lectures? I haven't seen any research about that. So I'll keep my eye out on that. I'm not sure if that's something that could be done. It might be something that could reduce anxiety during the class or as well. Uh, don't know don't know the answer to that. I'd like to find a way of addressing the decline in functional reading literacy that I've really observed recently. There's been some suggestions in the literature about doing micro learning and reading guides. It seems to me that's just adapting to the lack of functional reading literacy as opposed to fixing it. So maybe emphasizing the purpose of a longer reading, showing them, hey, in the real world, you're going to be reading long documents at some point in your business career or other career. Foster study groups for tackling readings together. I think how to do that. I think living learning communities is probably a great answer to that. And emphasize better the interleaving and its benefits. Another challenge I want to try to tackle, but I don't know really how, is how to deter all these male students from doing online gambling and try to reduce the harm that they're probably doing themselves. Don't have any great ideas on how to do that, but I'll keep looking. I do have other courses. I use mastery learning. I'm doing oral midterm exams 1-on-1 with 36 students this week and next week. Each exam is about 45 minutes where they have to explain a comprehensive estate plan to me. And if they don't get at least a B, they don't pass the course. They do get a couple chances to do it over again. In another course, we use case studies and presentations on that by small teams, a lot of Socratic method. And in our capstone course, where they do a comprehensive financial plan, also some mini cases, the emphasis is on great presentation skills as well as good writing skills. I have some recommended resources. CITL's got a lot of stuff there. If you want to take a photo of that, you'll link to the CITO website. And I was on there just the other day and I found more resources. I couldn't believe it. It was fantastic. Of course, they have a lot of seminars like this and other ones. I really recommend the book, The New Classroom Instruction That Works. Just fantastic book. It's consolidates, I think, the best research into a very readable format. Make It Stick was a book I had read before, extremely good as well. So, gosh, 4 minutes to go. I wonder if you have questions. Okay.
You've got a question, feel free to unmute. I was writing in, what was it, the new classroom instructions that work? Hadn't seen that one, Ron.
Yeah, that new classroom instruction that works.
Yeah.
Oops.
I'll have to look at that one.
That is actually my favorite book about learning in general.
Okay.
And it has they have identified the 14 most effective techniques in terms of student achievement that can be used in the classroom. And it's done with, I believe, a college undergraduate level in mind. It follows on a book that I think was written about 10 years ago, but they've actually made it more concise and updated all the research. And it came out a couple years ago.
Cool. We'll have to look into that. Thank you.
I suggested to the provost, buy 700 of these books and give it out. It's that good a book.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll look at it. We always, if you have not joined us in this for everybody, if you have not joined us for reading groups, that's one of the things that we love to do, is look at books like that, and think about it. So I thank you for the suggestion. If there aren't questions, I just want to say thank you, Ron. There was so much here, that, as Lori said, you're creative and driven to meet our students' learning needs. Absolutely. I just think, what we're hearing and is so much, purposeful, important, or so many purposeful, important, approaches to teaching. And I really, I think that meets the needs of all of our students, and helps. I think my favorite thing is that you said that I give them a chapter on how we learn, and we talk about this. I think devoting that kind of time shows them it really does matter. And so there are lots of things I'd love to talk with you about more. So stay tuned for my follow-ups. But thank you, for being here today. Thank you for, trying all this with, your students and giving so much time. This is just, it's amazing, and I think, they're better for it. I'm happy to have a conversation with any of those students who say that they're teaching themselves.
Well, Micah, thank you, and
Yeah.
I hope everyone who attended, thanks for coming, at least got a couple of takeaways that they can use in their own classes. Although I know every class is different, and teaching styles are different as well. But thank you for coming.
Yeah. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.
And I am stopping recording. There we go.